everyone. Uh, I was, well, going over Facebook and YouTube, like I do. But as some of you probably know, and most of you probably don't or care, I am my father's primary care giver. So he's in his 80s and doesn't get around very well and will just refuses to take care of himself. So most of the time, he will not go to bed and will fall asleep in his chair. And then when I wake him up, he'll go, "Oh no, I slept. I went to bed. I laid down," because he thinks he did. But what I've started doing is when I check on him and he's asleep, I will slowly turn him around and push him up to his pole so he can help pull himself up, and then change his YouTube channel to music that he likes. And then I wake him up. And what he does, at that point, I'll ask him, "Do you know what's going on? Are you doing okay?" He goes, "Yeah, I was just going to bed. I turned myself around and I'm going to bed." So he thinks he did it. And which is fine. I mean, that's as we get older. And actually, he's always done that. No, I was just going to bed. I was just resting my eyes. Just resting my eyes. Just resting my eyes is the classic saying of fathers that fall asleep on the couch watching television. He does it in front of YouTube, which is better, I guess. But during this pandemic, particularly, but usually and always, I've watched documentaries and TED Talks and a whole bunch of other people, theologists, arguing over consciousness. Donald Hoffman is a fantastic scientist that his experiments showed that we don't see reality, and that's clearly not. But he then does a leap, which good scientists do, but his leap to try and explain consciousness is that everything has consciousness. Consciousness is a primary element of reality. And the more I take care of my father, the more I see how people's reactions and their awareness, their consciousness, almost every time, if you look at it, in fact, I would argue every time, happens after the fact. So when I turn my dad around and push him up to his pole and change everything and then wake him up and he says, "Oh, I was just going to bed. I turned myself around again." That is his consciousness, his awareness, his consciousness, this magical thing that everybody's trying to explain and just can't seem to figure out how complicated it is, that it must be from God or some primary builder or from some faraway dimension that you need psychedelics to reach. All these people trying to overcomplicate this because they either don't understand or don't like it. I think that's the big one. They don't like it. That our consciousness is clearly just a way or a side effect and just a way for our programming to make sense out of the big picture. Amoebas don't care about the big picture. They're not trying to orient themselves in a society or in a unique environment. Their environment is just whatever's touching them. You get a more complicated creature that has more outside influences that they have to react to. In fact, outside influences that aren't necessarily tangible. Intangible outside influences, I believe, largely is what causes our consciousness to be necessary. It is a way for our entirety of being to kind of feel out what's going on to best describe and best motivate ourselves to the next task. So I think a lot of people are bothered by the fact that our consciousness is an afterthought. And it's just a way for us to process the story of intangible forces, society, rules, consequences. These are all intangible compared to physical contact, chemical interaction. Those are all basic. Consciousness is after the fact. It's super cool. It's super faulty. And I don't think, people are making it way more magical than it needs to be. It's fun. I get it. It's fun. If you're already a believer and you believe that there's invisible wizards in the sky and winged angels and demons flying around doing mystical battles, this is something that just adds right into that. If you already want vampires to be real, a magical consciousness, or witches, a magical consciousness that you can transfer to other things to possess, that whole business, it's fun for storytelling. It's fun. It's a useful tool to, I think, for people to use for metaphors to try and describe the struggles in life and make it less brutal and more fun, more interesting. But in the end, consciousness seems to be, saying the word consciousness is more difficult and more complicated, I believe, than actual consciousness. Thought of the morning. Peace.